So we have Mr. Cole here, and he is an agricultural education teacher here at Chelan High School. Mr. Cole, as a kid, did you ever think you were going to join the service?
Yeah, I really did, because there's been a history of service in my family. My grandfather fought in the Wilderness Brigade, is what they called them. It was basically a bunch of cowboys from Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming during the 191st Wilderness Brigade during World War I. My dad was in the Navy in World War II in the South Pacific. My Uncle Gene and my Uncle Elton both served in Korea in the 50s. And then I have two cousins, Buster and Dan, that served in Vietnam. So it was kind of, to me, it was something that I was going to always do.
Thank you. So, when did you join the service?
Joined the service in January of 1982, and I got out of the service in January of 1988. I spent 6 years in the United States Army Reserve as what they call a citizen soldier. You only work 1 week in a month and 2 weeks in the summer.
What branch were you enlisted in?
I was in the United States Army Reserve. Sorry, I already answered that one.
May you please describe your training?
My job was, I was 11 Bravo, which is infantry. Basically, they trained us to engage the enemy with all sorts of weapons in all sorts of conditions. Whether that be up close or far away. I actually was a machine gunner. I operated an M60 machine gun. Usually, probably because of my size, I could pack it around, and so that was my job. And with that, if you can identify a target and engage it, you can kill it. And that's what we did. I then went on to become a drill instructor for the rest of my time in the service. But my training was as 11 Bravo infantry.
What does the national anthem mean to you?
National anthem is our freedom song. I look at it like that. It's the song that emboldens or embodies the fact that we're free here in America, and there are men and women that keep it free. They stand on a wall with a gun to make sure that we can sleep free tonight, and that's important to me, and that's why the national anthem is very special to me in a whole lot of ways. I can remember my first year in the service. I went in on the 11th of June, the day after I graduated from high school, left for basic training. When I was in the middle of basic training on July 4th, and I can remember standing on a parade ground and hearing that song, and for the first time it really, really hit home what it meant to me. And as a rodeo cowboy, I was a bareback rider, and that's the first event. So always you hear the anthem when you're always amped up, ready to ride, and it's once you've heard it under either of those conditions, it never sounds the same again. It always means something more.
May you describe the transition from a citizen to a soldier?
Well, for me, it was because after I finished my basic training in AIT, the rest of the time I was a citizen soldier. I mean, basically I worked 1 weekend a month. I had to report to the firing center in Yakima, was where we trained at. We were a training regiment, the 104th, here in the Northwest, and that's basically we were made up of drill instructors, and every year we would go to either Fort Benning, Georgia, or Fort Gordon, Georgia, or Fort Jackson, South Carolina, for 2 weeks and train recruits to be soldiers.
So what was life like while you were in service?
I liked it when I was in the service. It was very, very regimented. I like to be, I don't necessarily like being told what to do, but once you got things down and trained, it was nice that, you got a good meal for breakfast, a good meal for lunch, a good meal for dinner. You ate pretty much as you wanted because you were active all the time. You ran everywhere. I was in very, very good shape. You know, and then when we went and trained people, we were making a difference in their lives. And the nice part about Army training is that you're trained to do a job. And you get trained so well that you don't even have to think about doing your job. It just comes. And that's what training and reflexes that we want to have in the American fighting man. That's why it's important that we train and we spend money on training, so that when someone's in harm's way, they can do their job without having to think. Where they can just react and do what needs done at the time to save themselves and the people around them. The other thing you learn a lot of is trust. All right, because when we were out there, we worked in fire teams and platoons within the company, and then squads within the platoon, and then teams within the squads, and you put your life in somebody else's hands, and they put their life in yours. And I was glad that I never did see any, fighting, because I was in the peacetime service. But it was something that I took an oath to defend our country from all enemies, both foreign and domestic, and uphold the Constitution. And that's a bell you can't unring. I mean, once you do that, that's forever. I'd gladly still do that for my country today. And because, like I said, that's a bell you can't unring. And it's a big deal to me that I served in the service and I carried on that tradition of my family as servicemen and women. And, I appreciate what all servicemen do today. I believe, I know some of the kids I had at Wenatchee have since retired from the service, but at one time I had over 50 servicemen and women on active duty. I just talked to one of my former students' parents this last weekend. She actually is a nuclear engineer on a submarine in the United States Navy, and she has a doctorate in nuclear physics, and she's been in the service, since 97. So she's been in quite a long time. I've had guys serve in Iraq and Iran, in the Marines, in the Air Force, in the Navy, Coast Guard, all the branches of the service. I've had students go on and do that, and I'm awful proud of the work that they do and the sacrifices that they've made. I've had more than one student wounded over in Afghanistan and Iraq, and that's a sad thing for me to think about, that those kids went over there and got injured, maybe because they knew I was in the service. That weighs on me sometimes. I like to be a role model for kids and for young men, but I think it's great that they served their country, but they need to do it for their reasons, not because I did. So, anyhow, any other questions?
Do you have anything to add, or?
No, I pretty much did that.
All right.
All right. Thank you very
Thank you.
much.